Hello, this is old Carnivore Steve, and I thought I'd give you an update on what's happening and talk to you a little about exercise. Now, I was never much on exercising, not a weightlifter, that's for sure, but I did go on walks and have other activities. But as a senior, uh, pretty much you're not going to be going out there doing heavy lifting squats and running around. Things that I find enjoyable are walking. And as my wife Cynthia mentioned in a previous video, we like to walk in the park. And the park that we've chosen has very long paths and it has steep inclines. So when you're going up one of these inclines, you get your cardio going a little, and it's pretty healthy. Now, the average person today, average, I don't know what average is, but they say you should get 10,000 steps in a day. Well, for a senior over 75 or 80, 10,000 steps is a good goal. I wouldn't mind doing 10,000 steps a day. As a matter of fact, I used to quite frequently. Now, we decided after a long time that we like to go on walks. And when we started walking, we used to walk in a suburban park or city park. And typically they go around in a circle. And you start walking and you feel a little tired and you say, well, all you have to do is cut across the circle and there's a car, we can go home. And quite frequently, that's what we did. If the weather got a little chilly or a raindrop came down, or we just didn't feel like going any further. And typically, the parks we went to, it was about a mile to go all the way around. But if you happen to get a little tired and saw your car, well, it was a quarter of a mile to the car and you were done. And it was monotonous. Most of them were pretty flat. So we started going to state parks, and we found a couple that were really great. And Cynthia mentioned, well, this one park, it's up, down, and you go across bridges and over the river. It's a river, by the way, not a stream. And she said, well, from one end to the other was 5 miles, over 5 miles, and it took us 3 years to get there. Well, she didn't tell you one thing about that. That was 5 miles in one direction. And because it was a straight line, more or less, in order to get back to your car, it was 5 miles back. And we found this worked pretty good for us because if we were going out, especially when you first started, you were anxious to see, well, what's around the next bend? And if you stretched it just a little further, well, you're stretching it further in both directions because you have to come back. It's not like you're in a circle and can walk over across the lawn to your car. You're in the middle of the woods. And there are, a tremendous amount of state parks out there in just about every state. Now, the one we went to, like I said, the section we went to was about 5 miles from one end to the other. So it was 5 miles back. So after 3 years, we were doing 10 miles. Not every day, but usually we did about, I'd say, 5 miles a day on average the last year or two that we went to that particular park. And we made a habit of going to all of the parks around, and there must have been at least a dozen of them. We went to various mountain parks. Well, in Ohio, you can't call them mountain parks. But they did have hills. And we went to wetlands parks where you were in the wetlands. There was a little trail, and if you stepped off in either direction, you went down in the swamp. And it was really interesting because we used to, on our favorite park, we would stop and there would be paths going off to the left or to the right somewhere else. And There was always something different on the path, a waterfall, we ran into wild turkeys, deer. One of our favorite spots overlooking the river, we used to watch the blue heron come in every year. And it was always interesting. There was always something new. So I found it very easy to get my exercise in and to up my uh, distance because there was always something new in the park. And then if we went to another park like that, again, a park that's not going around in a circle, but that has actual trails, it was very beneficial. And the ones we went to, you got your cardio up there, especially when you were going up a 30% incline for a half a mile or so. You got your cardio up, and then you come back down and you go up the other end. So I think it was very, very beneficial and helpful. And I think getting outdoors to me is better than being indoors because when you're outdoors, even when you're wearing clothing, you're absorbing the sunlight and vitamin D. I mean, it comes through your clothes. The UV, the infrared, they come through your clothes, and it's very beneficial to your health. So that was what we did for exercise quite a bit. Now, an update on my bladder tumor, and I got a little more information on it. The doctors told me, well, it was a very aggressive, non-invasive tumor. And that sounds like an oxymoron. I mean, aggressive, but non-invasive. But what was it doing in my tumor? I mean, in my bladder, if it was non-invasive? Seems pretty invasive to me. But at any rate, the doctor went back in there after the appropriate cautions and saying, well, if we find something, we can't give you BCG treatments, and we might have to take your bladder out. And well, they finally went in, and everything looked pretty good. It was clear. He said there was a little swollen spot in there that he felt obligated to scrape off since he was inside my bladder. And so far, as far as the bladder goes, it appears I've got a temporary clean bill of health. And naturally, in 4 weeks, I've got to go back for more appointments. And we'll see what happens. But the carnivore diet, I think, helped out tremendously. As I mentioned in the past, the carnivore diet, some people ask me, well, maybe that contributed to your bladder cancer. And no, as I mentioned in the past, I chain smoked for 50 years, plus I spent time at Camp Lejeune, which their water was contaminated by some very toxic chemicals for a number of years. And not only that, but I was in the industrial water treatment industry for a number of years where I dealt with hexavalent chromates. If you've ever watched, what is that TV show, Aaron Brockovich, or the movie Aaron Brockovich, I dealt with hexavalent chromates and isothiazolines and other very toxic chemicals for a long time. So considering all that, I think I'm pretty lucky. As I mentioned before, I think I actually dropped a kidney stone and blocked my urination. And if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have found out maybe that I had this tumor. And right now, they removed it and it's looking pretty good. So I'm very happy about that. Well, that's my update, and I'll be getting back to you again with other things that we do. I'd like to talk to you about coffee next time, since there seems to be mixed opinions about whether or not a carnivore can drink coffee, and I'll tell you what coffee did to me. So if you listened to me this long, thank you very much. If you learned something or enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe. And I look forward to seeing you again.